Welcome back to Caracast, the podcast from Carasoft, the trusted government IT solutions provider. Subscribe to get the latest technology updates in the public sector. I'm Corey Baumgartner, your host from the Carasoft production team. On behalf of Mimecast and Carasoft, we would like to welcome you to today's podcast, focused around the role of domain-based message authentication reporting and conformance in email security. Brad Allen, sales engineer at Mimecast, will discuss what DMARC is exactly and how it adds another layer of security to business email systems.
DMARC is one of those topics that in recent years has really skyrocketed in the email security world. And so in the last year and a half that I've been part of Mimecast, it's definitely been part of nearly every conversation we've had. I support the SLED industry, so state, local, government, and education. So everything for Carasoft except for the federal part so far. And the topic of conversation around DMARC has just gone up and up and up, and lots of opportunity with all the customers that we support. And I've done several of these so far because it is a huge topic of interest. And so I'll share my screen. And as Sage said, I can talk for the entire time, of course, but it's much better if there's some participation questions and definitely some comments on wins with DMARC, utilizing DMARC as a topic of like a wedge play or something like that. All of that is definitely encouraged from me just to make it a little bit more back and forth in conversation. I wanted to start off with, because SLED, the education part, we work with a lot of higher education and K through 12 and all facets, but DMARC, as I'll get into, is one of those technologies that it's DNS based. So it's very easy to just look up the records of, as long as you know the domain name, you can start looking up the records, and I'll show you how actually later. Because of that, we scripted a little reconnaissance here, and I know that there's some participants that this may hit home for, so I wanted to highlight this. This was done earlier in the year, calendar year, and so some of these have may change, but what you're looking at here is we did a little open source reconnaissance and did a script to go look up these Division I colleges and look at their records. 352 schools in the U.S., 104 of them had no DMARC record at all. And the 248 that did, 198 were at P equals none. And I'll get into what all that means if you don't know. But what that means from this perspective is that 80% of the colleges that have DMARC, a DMARC solution in place or a record in place, because they're at P equals none, they weren't doing anything with that information. Some of those definitely may have been just starting their journey, and we don't know at this point because we haven't followed up yet on how they've progressed through that journey. But we do know that a lot of those records have been stale for a long time, and they weren't doing anything with that information. And then that doesn't even account the 104 that had no record at all, who were definitely not doing anything. So let's get into why it's important and why that may be the case and what I'm even talking about.